Hey everyone, welcome back to Random Sidecast. Really appreciate you tuning in. We're doing a series of these in the lead up to a couple really important events that are coming up in Horizon's universe, and I've been wanting to talk about them. And we have an awesome guest on today. They've been putting out a ton of really high caliber Horizon content that I have been wanting to talk to you about for a little bit. It's been brought to my attention by quite a few people. NoxiousAsp, thanks so much for coming on.
Hi, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And good to be
Yeah.
here. Hi, everybody.
So, for those of you who may be a little bit unfamiliar with what you do in your work, kind of tell us about your creator journey, the kind of content that you like making, and obviously how that ties into all of our Horizon stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking. So basically, I started my YouTube journey last year. Actually, in January, I just got my first year anniversary for the YouTube channel.
Congrats.
Um, I never really saw myself doing this, but for the longest time, one of my buddies, my good buddies that I've known for over 10 years, he has like the voice of an angel, like a broadcaster almost. I've always
Nice.
told him to get into it. And then one day I kept telling him he wouldn't do it. One day I just thought to myself, you know what, why not? Well, I keep telling him to do it. Why don't I do it? So I started a channel. I didn't know really what I was going to do. I knew that I wanted to do a gaming channel, a variety channel, because I love video games. Grew up playing video games my entire life, basically. And then the way it worked out is when I started the channel, by the time I got everything up and going, the first major game that came out that I wanted to play was Horizon Forbidden West. Of course, it's just a huge release. I had loved Horizon Zero Dawn, so I was really looking forward to it. And then it kind of just took off from there. I've been kind of learning as I go. I didn't have any experience with video editing or recording or anything before that, or game capture. So it was a little. We had a little bumps. We had a little growing pains at first. I remember my first real kind of series was a playthrough of a Forbidden West with no dialogue whatsoever, which at the time, like I kind of like watching those kind of videos myself on YouTube, but
Mhm.
I figured that I felt like it didn't have like any personality to it. Of course, it was more of like I, people could watch it, but I kind of wanted to start getting my personality into this thing. So I started thinking about what I wanted to do further after that. And the first thing that I thought of, I remember I had finished the game and I was thinking about what I wanted to do with it because I knew I wanted to make some kind of video for it. And I was actually at night and I was getting ready for bed, sitting in bed, and it kind of came to me. I was like, you know what? I love nature documentaries. I love those old like videos, like even about dinosaurs, like walking with dinosaurs, that kind of stuff. Um, so I thought to myself, why don't I do that with these machines that are in Horizon? Because it's one of my favorite things about Horizon is the plethora of different machines that you can fight. And unfortunately, just fight, but I also kind of appreciate because I really do appreciate the amount of work that Gorilla has put into
Right.
designing them and programming them. It's pretty crazy if you think about it. It's easy to just kind of write it off as just a if you just look at it from the surface. But if you really look at the machines and kind of look at them closely and watch how they work, it's kind of amazing because I would figure like they would actually function in real life if something was like that. And to be able to program that is actually pretty astonishing to me. So I've always had a really big respect for the developers at Gorilla. And so that's how I started the Machine Spotlight series, of course. And we've had some, of course, bumps in the road with that too. Every time I look back at my very first Machine Spotlight, was the Slaughter Spine, of course, because that was my favorite machine at the time, which I think is a lot of people's favorite machines.
Great one.
Right. Um, so I did that, but when I look back at it sometimes, I'm like, damn, like that's my most viewed video that I have on YouTube. And I'm like, man, that's when I was just starting off. I feel like I've grown a lot since then, and I wish that I could kind of, I almost wish like I could go back and redo it and have that be like my main video. But it's fine. I've gotten a lot of love for that video itself, and a lot of love for the Machine Spotlight series as a whole. I've been really fortunate to basically get to be a part of this Horizon community, which I wasn't ever a part of before this.
Mhm.
And it's absolutely amazing community. I've had a lot of support from it, and so it's been amazing, kind of growing in that community and getting to know people in the community, like yourself as well, of course. but
Yeah.
um, but it's been a really cool. I do, of course, look forward to making more Horizon content in the future. I'm kind of like at that kind of almost like a Y in the road, a crossroads where I still want to do a variety kind of channel, but I love Horizon. And of course, there's a lot of stuff happening in the Horizon world right now, which I think we're going to talk about today. So,
Hoping so.
yeah, so I do look forward to making stuff for that as well, into moving on into the future.
Well, I know, especially with the machine spotlight video, and I think you're your own harshest critic, honestly, because I look back at like my first video I did for this channel was a Star Wars video. Actually, it's buried somewhere like in the bottom of my playlist. But yeah, I think it's natural to always look back and be like, oh man, I wish I, or I said something that actually wasn't true within the lore, and I got to go back and like make a whole video on the corrections that I need to
I
make.
know.
So but I think it's really admirable because, yeah, I think that the biggest thing that people, at least in my opinion, that kind of holds them back from content creation is just paralysis by analysis, right? Where you're just, of course, you want to get everything perfect and you want to do everything. But at the end of the day, you just got to make something. You got to
Yeah,
go out there and
absolutely.
take a
You gotta do
swing at
something.
it. And I think that's really, really admirable that you did that. Not everybody does.
Thank
But
you.
yeah, I want to talk a little bit about the machine spotlight because, yeah, it's this really well done mix of not only really useful in-game advice, but also kind of taking an artistic approach where you really have these great moments with the machines, which I'm totally with you. They really are due that kind of respect. So much work went into them. So how do you kind of strike that balance between your classic kind of guide, but also kind of giving yourself that freedom of expression that kind of comes with game capture? Because you said you didn't have any experience with that.
Yeah, so absolutely. Thanks for asking. Basically, I can go down a rabbit hole with this because I've thought about this
That's
for
why we're
such a long
here.
time. Basically, when I started, like I mentioned, I kind of the idea I had for the series was like a nature documentary. So I wanted to show them off in a light that people don't normally see them because normally people were just shooting at them with bows and arrows and bombs. So I wanted to kind of put them in a light that people could actually kind of get a closer look and appreciate them a little more.
Mhm.
Um, but I did want to have some kind of guide aspect to it. So I kind of figured I kind of thought to myself, if I were watching a video on YouTube or if I went to go look at to find out more about this machine, what would I want to know about it? Um, and so, of course, I have the locations, the weak points, kind of details about those, what their purposes are, the machine's general purpose of core, what it was created for. Um, and then I kind of give my 2 cents and overriding, of course, what it could do overriding, because that's another fun thing. I love watching machine fights
Yeah.
on YouTube.
Yep.
So I wanted to do something like that as well. But I've always kind of been from the beginning, I never wanted to kind of tell people what they should do because I think that there's so much variety in Horizon that you can play it any way you want. So I've kind of tried to stay away from the kind of guides where it's like, all right, the best way to kill him is to get this giant sharp shot bow and upgrade it fully, use these coils, and just aim for this one spot and then kill the machine. I didn't want to do that because I feel like it would narrow down people's kind of approach to the machine. So I wanted to just give them the tools that they can then use on their own with whatever playstyle they choose to go and basically help them in their own way defeat the machine, of course, or defeat the machines. Because again, I think one of the best things about Horizon, especially in Forbidden West with all the new, you have all the new Valor Surges and all the new weapons,
Right.
is that you can really truly play it almost any way you want, except melee build. Unfortunately, as much as melee has really improved since Zero Dawn,
Yeah.
I I have filmed and thrown away so many different melee challenges because it just doesn't work with the Slaughter Spine. It just
Yeah.
doesn't work. But yeah, so that's the main reason. That's how I kind of looked at it.
Well, you said you've been gaming for a while, and I kind of see it, at least for the time being, a trend of, you have Horizon stuff, God of War stuff, Elden Ring stuff, these really wide sweeping, beautiful open world games. What was kind of the first game in that genre that it got you hooked into this kind of style of gaming?
So I would say the first real open world kind of RPG game that I've ever played, I think was Morrowind, but I actually
Oh,
never actually beat it. I think I only got past like the first opening area because at that time I think I was like probably like 10 years old or something,
mhm.
and I wasn't very good. So I that was my first kind of time I actually played one of those games. But the first time I really got into it, I think would actually be its successor, which was of course Oblivion, which was a great game at the time. It still is. I mean, it's still kind of silly looking back at it, but I still think it's a great game for the time it was released. But
Sure.
that was kind of the first game that I really got into open world um, genre,
Mhm.
and because I think it just gives people so much to look for, and I kind of like the idea that you can play it any way you want. If you want to just go through the story, you can just beeline right through the main story, and then hey, that's it. You're done with the game. You can put it down. But for people like me, where I like kind of searching through every kind of nook and cranny and crevice and finding the things that the developers put in there that they want people to find.
Yeah.
You can also play that way, which I really appreciate. Of course, with Horizon Zero Dawn and Forbidden West, I was actually amazed with the amount of work they put into putting these little data points throughout the map that you didn't really have to find. You can play through the game and you didn't have to read a single data point. And you can still enjoy the game. But for those of us, like I think you and me, I can kind of assume,
Yeah.
we really appreciate that kind of thing that the developers put into there, because it can make you basically expands on the world they're making, and this goes for all open world games. But I think it's really cool. And that's kind of the reason why I love these open world games so much. Like God of War Ragnarok, I would say is kind of very narrowly kind of open world. It does have open world sections, but there are a lot of things that you can find in there as well. But Elden Ring, that actually that was that kind of blew me away as well. It was my first From Software game I've ever played. But again, another one of those games where you can play through the main story, and I kind of beeline through it, I would say, in my stream. But I want to almost go back and actually look around and kind of discover everything, because they put a lot of stuff into that game too, which I really appreciate.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's people like Vati Vidya out there that are, you know, doing the Lord's work, combining all that stuff together. And
I love his videos.
yeah, he's amazing. You know, him and for me, him and My Name Is by for like the benchmark as far as, you know, what at least, you know, for the kind of content I make, that's like the dream. And kind of moving forward from that, you kind of dipped your toe into that water a little bit now too. And I think you bring up a really good point that I'm always kind of screaming from the rooftops, that Horizons, I think world building is wildly underrated. I think it's slept on by a lot of people, because you can derive a lot of enjoyment without it. So I think that's its greatest strength, but also I think, you know, people might not give it the credit that it's due, because you're right, so many things can kind of come from traveling around and finding those little nuggets of information that you wouldn't have known before. And speaking of one of which, you've kind of started to stumble upon something that I've been fixating on for the past 5 years or so, to varying degrees of success. And probably the biggest thing that people want me to talk to you about, as far as my comments, I literally just got one yesterday. Where did you first encounter Vast Silver?
So, all right. So I'm hoping that we can both put the tinfoil hats on for
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite things to do. I get a little crazy with it, but actually I was one of those people that totally skimmed past it. I'm not even gonna lie, I skimmed past it in Zero Dawn.
Easy.
It's very easy to skim past it. I didn't even think about it twice. I think at the time when I was skimming through it in the first game, I just thought, oh, okay, that's kind of a cool little parallel. I thought that was just them saying how they kind of went on to create AIs in the future. I never thought anything further of it. But I actually, as I was, of course, learning about more people in the community, one of my bigger supporters was Kiki. And Kiki has, since the beginning, she's always kind of wanted me to make a video about Vast Silver. So one of the days I was like, you know what? I know about Vast Silver, but this person's really interested in learning more about Vast Silver. Maybe there's something that I missed, because I didn't think there was anything more that you could learn. So I started looking into it, and man, it's a really big rabbit hole that you can fall into. It is crazy. And I have a couple theory videos out there. The first one, of course, we're kind of discussing whether or not Vast Silver could be Nemesis, which part of me I'm almost like, in the video I even mentioned, there's so many darn coincidences between Vast Silver and Nemesis and similarities that I feel like it's impossible that there's not at least some sort of connection, even if they're not one and the same being. I feel like it's impossible that there's not some sort of connection between the two. If you look at like the two, Vast Silver, of course, being considered a singularity, which is a data point that was brought up in the Forbidden West, one of the, I think, data point 72 or something, past Silver, I think it was. But you look at that, and then of course you look at something like the last mission of Horizon Forbidden West, which is called Singularity, which kind of centers around Nemesis, which is by definition a singularity as well. And I just think it's given what we've seen from the Guerrilla in the past, where they kind of hide these little details that lead to, basically, if you look into it, they are telling you where the story is going to go, like with the Odyssey, with the data point about the Odyssey basically exploding. Of course, falsely, which we found out, exactly, quote unquote, exploding in orbit. So based on our knowledge that Guerrilla has done that kind of thing in the past, I almost feel like they're kind of setting up something for those of us, like people like us who are looking further into it, to kind of give us clues as to where they're going with the story. And I did came out with another video about Vast Silver recently. Well, it was partially about Vast Silver. It's basically about the supposed leak for the Burning Shores that was released like 3 years or before Forbidden West was even announced. I don't know if you had a chance to see that, but basically,
Is that the one with the Oshua and the silver one? Is that the one? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was reading that, and even that, like I mentioned in the video, leaks are leaks. You don't even know whether you can trust them or not. And most of the time, you can't. But is it okay if I talk about this? With like, it might be
no,
kind of
absolutely.
spoilerish.
Yeah, I think I think I covered this leak maybe a year or two ago, so I would
Okay.
like a recap for it. I guess potential spoilers,
Yeah,
maybe.
exactly.
It's always weird to put one of those in front of your videos. Like, this is a speculative video, but I could be spoiling something, so
Yeah,
buckle
so
up.
if you potentially don't want to be potentially spoiled, then probably potentially leave. But basically, just kind of rehash. The reason why I thought the leak had some kind of credence to it is, of course, there's a few details in the leak that the leak actually came out, I think, well before the Horizon Forbidden West was even officially announced. It got the title wrong, but the title itself that it claimed it was going to be was Horizon Singularity, which I think is also very interesting given that we see Singularity mentioned a lot in Forbidden West.
Yeah.
They mentioned the grappling hook and the enhanced climbing mechanics, and basically the plot centering around capturing Hephaestus, which is basically, I would say, it's not the entire plot of Forbidden West, but it's a big chunk of it. You know, you're going to have to capture Hephaestus at some point.
Yeah.
So you're kind of gathering the pieces to allow you to do that, kind of in the as the story culminates in the end. And then also kind of the thing that I thought was interesting that it mentioned that we hadn't seen yet, of course, was that we would see a living BOR7 Horus Titan or the Metal Devil, which of course we in Forbidden West we didn't see at all. But now that we got the Burning Shores trailer, which came out in December, we do know that at least in the Burning Shores we are going to see a living Metal Devil. So I think it also kind of lends a little more credence to it, because even at the time it looked like it was fake because we didn't see one. Now we know we are. So that leak goes further on to say that after the events of basically after the Hephaestus is captured, which is after the events of the main story, of course, I'm guessing the DLC is going to take us to, is and I can go on about that too, but it looks like
we'll put a link into that video just in case for everybody who wants the really deep deep explanation.
Aloy goes to the Embrace. She sees that it's occupied by some unknown tribe called the Oshua that come from the southwest, which of course is the Southern California area. By the way, I live in Los Angeles, so I'm really excited to see Southern California area brought to life in Horizon. So the Oshua tribe came to capture Aloy and bring them back to their home, where she finds that they're led by some mysterious AI, like you mentioned, that's named the Silver One. Of course, this is just the leak, so it's not for sure yet that we don't know if this is kind of real or not. But I think it's a little strange that we do see something like that. And it definitely seems like it would be Vast Silver, which of course puts my previous theory in the trash, basically, that they're the same being. But I still think there's a little part of it that may be true. But I think it's really interesting. I think that it would be really cool to see that happen in the DLC. I would love to learn more about Vast Silver, and I think the DLC would be a great way to do that, because the Frozen Wilds, the Horizon Zero Dawn DLC, of course, we explored more about Hephaestus and learned more about Hephaestus. I think it'd be pretty fitting that in the DLC for Forbidden West, we learn more about another kind of side character, if you will, this Vast Silver that we don't know a lot about. We know very little about. So I'm pretty excited to see that, if that, of course, is what the DLC is going to be about. And I'm excited to see where that leads us, because I still don't know for sure if we do find Vast Silver, if Vast Silver still is alive, quote unquote. Like, is it going? It can't. I feel like Guerrilla can't have two really big bads going into the third game. They can't have Nemesis and Vast Silver, because Nemesis alone is like, what the heck are we going to do about Nemesis? You don't even know what we're going to do at this point. So I almost feel like Vast Silver, if we play our cards right, or Aloy plays her cards right, would be a great ally to have against Nemesis. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do. This could be totally wrong, but I like thinking about stuff like that. But I'd love to hear what you think about all of that.
Yeah, it's funny. And I think one thing that people I always appreciate it when people like go out on limbs and speculate and put pieces together. And of course, there can always be a piece that's like the wonderful and infuriating thing when you start to try to go down these rabbit holes. It's like you only have the information that you have. So I remember I was so deep in the weeds when Zero Dawn came out. I was so convinced that essentially the system, what was happening is something that was interfering in the system to trigger Hades to activate the way it was intended to do so. Because it's the only subfunction that by design has the power to supplant Gaia if and when the need occurs. And then we find out in Forbidden West that actually has happened a number of times, which is a really cool revelation that I'm like, no, talk more about that. It's like, no, it's corrupted. I'm like, oh. So those kind of nuggets I was always really interested in. And then I was kind of the opinion that if the glitch and like the original glitch that set off the Pharaoh plague and the transmission that severed Gaia from her subfunctions, the extinction signal, were connected, I was really of the opinion that Vast Silver could really be the only entity that could have done that. But obviously new things have come to light. I'm very much in the camp too that Nemesis is bad enough. And I'm actually putting out a new video here about Vast Silver very soon. I think it's probably going to come out before this, so I'll spoil a little bit of kind of what my thought process was behind it. But just kind of seeing how the hints were laid out in Zero Dawn opposed to how they came to fruition in Forbidden West kind of got me thinking to look back on some things, right? Because a lot of my speculation about that thought process came from this one data point, Hades Protocol, which is very much about how the two interact with each other, right? And I was really convinced that that data point was the key to explain why Gaia fell, when in fact, it actually explains how it would be resurrected in the next game. Yeah. So at least I was like, I knew there was something about this that was critically important. It just happened to be the inverse, right? It was less about the relationship and it was more along the lines of, no, there are multiple versions of Hades that are being tested against multiple versions of Gaia. And then we get the Gaia kernel and now we have Gaia back. So I kind of wanted to look at some of the older Vast Silver data points, things like Turing at Criticized, or the one where they're kind of discussing the Tormented log a little bit. And I think the one thing now that I'm leaning towards, because like you, I'm sure you're thinking like, is this an ally or an enemy, or what could it be capable of? It's designed for climate intervention, which got me spinning on the fact that like there's a climate crisis in the new game, but it turned out to be true. I think I haven't in the past put enough emphasis on the fact that if the lore is true, which it's not always, it can be purposely misleading. I don't think that we've put enough emphasis on the fact that it was captured, just period, right?
Yeah.
And I think that could be a really big turning point in battling Nemesis. Like you have only really one instance in the recorded lore at this time where humanity successfully trapped a superhuman artificial intelligence successfully. And in the 31st century, the only thing that could really know how that happened would be Vast Silver.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of where I'm thinking at now. But I'm not going to lie to you. I really did like your take about, because that's the thing. It's you're either of the opinion that the way that Vast Silver was treated by humanity would have set it off on a path of vengeance. The fact that it was just punished from the onset for just being sentient, and you have it captured. And then you think like Passover, where somebody's speculating on the fact that it was basically made to work and things like that. And then you connected it with kind of the obscure references with the Ramses project and the things that
super obscure.
right. By the way, though, what is it that called, like Schooling Ted or Schooling Teddy Bear or whatever that data point is? One of the best ones in the whole game, in my opinion. but and I was very happy they gave more love to Travis Tate because I think he's a really good character. But yeah, that's kind of when you're staring at it for so long, you're like, oh my gosh, yeah, this is. Yeah. So like,
all the pieces are coming together.
Exactly. So if you are of the opinion that Vast Silver is an enemy of humanity, it would make a lot of sense for it to try to find ways to not have it reborn on the planet. But then on the other hand, you're like, well, it was created as a climate intervention AI to help people. It seems like in any instance where it could reach out to people, it tried to. So it's yeah, you can only kind of
Scared and
speculate on
lonely.
say that again, sorry.
Scared and lonely.
Yeah, I know, right? Oh, I think one of those, there's I believe it's the 0.6 data point that you find in the Frozen Wilds that really gave it a whole other spin, where Anita Sandoval was talking about like how it generated fear. It just made it so much more visceral. You're like, oh man, you actually gave this thing a little bit of a personality. So I would be interested to see how much of that leak comes to fruition, because yeah, I think everybody kind of wrote it off because none of that happened in the base game. But now, once again, looking back at the information with new eyes, it can make a lot more sense.
Absolutely. There's you mentioned just I really quickly want to talk about that whole interrogation scene with Hades.
Yeah.
I keep going back to it because just like you, I wanted to hear more and more, which of course was corrupted. But I just played through Horizon Forbidden West again just to record some B-roll for one of my videos, and I
Know
was going
that.
through it again, and it's so kind of so interesting that Hades mentioned the fact that this is like biosphere number 5 and there will be no number 6. It was very kind of uh, almost kind of chilling in a
Yeah.
way. And the fact that like what exactly happened to the biospheres, and I think there's 3 other times in like 2100, like a deck or a century after the Pharaoh plague, where the biosphere was restarted 3 times. Like what exactly happened there? Why did it why did it restart? Is there something we don't know? Is there something that Hades was going to tell us that we won't find out at all now? I kind of I keep going back to that. I think that there's more to that. I think that we might get a little more information about that moving forward.
Yeah. Um, and it's one of those things where it's kind of a blind spot in the Horizon timeline, like post 0 day to first humans being born from the Eleuthia cradles. So there's a couple things there, like that got dropped, which I was really interested in, and I want to know more about that. And also the just very casual way Gaia brought up that Elysium didn't make it to its full term, and it went offline early. So you're like,
Mhm.
something happened here in this interim from where maybe the biosphere was not suitable for life, so it got hard reset several times. And then you also have the people who are supposed to live basically enough for a century's worth of life, and they didn't even make it close to that. So that era of Horizon history has always really fascinated me, that bringing the planet back. But obviously, since there's really nobody to record it outside of Gaia and maybe Vast Silver or Cyan and people and things like that, so it's yeah, that was both like a riveting scene for me but equally frustrating.
I'm glad you brought up Elysium because we also don't know basically almost anything about it other than its intended purpose and what it was meant for and that it went offline. But I don't think Guerrilla would do the same kind of thing twice, like a bait and switch or pulling the rug out from underneath us. But I almost think, and this is another one of my tinfoil hat theories, but we don't even know where Elysium is. And now that we're going in the Burning Shores, we're going to the Los Angeles area, of course. This is total tinfoil hat, so I'm sorry. You're going to cringe on this a little bit, but there, of course, is in the LA area. There's Elysian Park, which Elysian is basically has the same definition as Elysium, a paradise, afterlife, basically paradise. Which okay, of course, that's like super far reach. I think I'm just drawing for things at this point, but I think that it's interesting if that does kind of line up. It'd be interesting to see. This is all speculation, but if Elysium is in LA or in Elysian Park, which would be kind of silly, what if it went offline in the same way that the Odyssey supposedly blew up? What if it didn't really go offline? What if something in Elysium basically shielded itself from outside detection? Like maybe if Vast Silver kind of hid away in Elysium or something after the events of the game or after the events of the Pharaoh Plague, maybe because Vast Silver probably wouldn't want to be found again. Maybe he would hide away in Elysium and basically shut it off from the rest of the world. And then that's why we see possibly Vast Silver coming back in the LA area and the burning shores. It makes sense that the proximity of it would kind of make a lot of sense, but that's a super far reach.
Well,
That's a super tinfoil hat theory.
those are the things that that make the game really fun, and the things that in as far as like symbolism and things like that are concerned, Horizon's not beyond that at all. There's a lot of ties to Greek and Roman mythology, obviously Egyptian mythology through all the FAS stuff. So and it's funny, even things that you don't really see, like when you or you piece together on your own, like when you go into Thebes for the first time, and there's a lot of statues of this particular goddess who I forget her name off the top of my head, but it's the lion-headed goddess who
Sekhmet.
essentially, who's there to protect the pharaoh in the afterlife. And number one, you're like, oh God, Ted is such a tool. And then two, but yeah, I mean, there's absolute things that are implied that the game will never tell you. It's principally like, how much effort do you want to go into seeing? And that's another kind of rich thing about it. And also fuels those kind of tinfoil hat theories, because when one of those things turns out to be true, it really opens up the door for everything else. I think about that a lot when I remember growing up, and I've always been a big Pokemon person, but the fact that Mew existed in that game gave credence to all the other nonsense theories you heard on the playground of like, oh yeah, you can get Pikablue, you just gotta restart your game. And then
of course I tried all those stupid theories.
Who did
some of them were real, like Mew, and then Missing No, and like all that stuff. It was actually
Unknown,
real.
The one that totally just broke your game. But yeah, so I think that when you look and then you are vindicated in your search, you're like, there's so much more that I'm not seeing, or a piece of the puzzle that's not there. In your particular headcanon, whether you think this is the way it's going to turn out or not, would you rather see Vast Silver as a unlikely hero or a villain?
I would like to see Vast Silver as an unlikely hero, kind of like an anti-hero kind of character, where maybe we do find out that in the past it wasn't the best thing. Maybe it did cause, I want to kind of pick your brain about this, but maybe it just did cause the glitch that kind of caused the Pharaoh Storm to go rogue in the first place. But now, over a century, it's had time to think and process what it's done. I would love to see that, because I think that it would be very fitting for something like Vast Silver, that I think it's not concretely stated in the game, but it almost seems like Elizabeth Sobek probably had some kind of hand in creating Vast Silver. If Vast Silver would then work hand in hand with Aloy to defeat this crazy threat that is Nemesis, I think that would be really awesome. I would love to see that.
Yeah, it's funny that you bring that up, because you also brought up a kind of interesting point in your Vast Silver video, because I'm with you. I don't think it's beyond the realm of possibility to think that, number one, Elizabeth worked on Vast Silver, and two, that it probably at least could have been an FAS project, at least a clawback level project, where either Elizabeth was on as a junior scientist, or she was the chief scientist by the time that rolled out. Anita Sandoval, it seems like she worked on it, and Firebreak was also an FAS project during the clawback. So I wouldn't be surprised if they were all kind of central on that team that kind of pushed it to the next level. So I wouldn't be shocked at all if Ted Pharaoh wanted to continue making a buck on it, either keeping it locked away in a bunker like you insinuated, or I'm also of the opinion that he could have just as easily not have no emotional attachment to this thing and sold it to Zenith to help with their research with digital transcendence. Because that, when you're talking about that data point revisiting the mind upload, it's in direct reference of like, yes, the singularity proves that this, at least we're at this point, even though we're the pundits at the time said we're quite a while away from digital transcendence, but Zenith was making breakthroughs way beyond what people thought was possible at the time. So
I'm glad you brought that up, because I always thought, that's part of the reason why. I went with one theory. When I made that video for Vast Silver, I had a couple, I think 2 or 3 theories about where it would go forward at basically at the onset of the Pharaoh Plague. So basically at the onset of the Pharaoh Plague, I had to kind of decide which theory I wanted to stick with. So I stuck with the theory that Vast Silver locked itself away in Apollo or something, and it was taken by Far Zenith. But another theory, of course, was that instead of Farrell holding on to Vast Silver, it was actually Far Zenith that somehow, maybe, I don't know, either if Farrell sold off Vast Silver to Far Zenith, or if Vast Silver basically approached Far Zenith itself and made some kind of deal with Peter Shimfumbe. Because if you think of Vast Silver as being this, basically having the same intelligence, or basically the same thought process, like basically it's like a human almost, the way it thinks, or a lot smarter, of course.
Right.
But I kind of think that it wouldn't be too far off to think that it would kind of act in its own self-interest, and maybe it sees Far Zenith's intentions and maybe wanted to get off planet or something. But it is true. Like, it's so weird that in that time period after Vast Silver was recaptured, that, I mean, you think it was a decade later still, but Far Zenith made all these crazy advances they created the Odyssey in a lot less time than it would have taken the world powers to somehow.
Yeah.
We also see that they made the ectogenic chambers that I think one of the scientists at the Zero Dawn project had mentioned, like, this is way beyond what we have at this point. These things are amazing, but like, how, of course, Far Zenith is made up of some of the best, greatest minds in the world and some of the worst minds in the world, but it's kind of hard to see that they would be able to do that all on their own in such a short amount of time. So I think it's totally plausible that something like Vast Silver could have helped them make those advances. And then if that is true, then we got to look at, we know very little about Peter Shimfumbe, and I always think it's weird that his face is blurred out for some reason.
Yeah, me too.
Why? It's almost like someone tried to purge him from the data suppository, whatever it is. But why? I always think, like, why would they want to purge him from that? Why wouldn't they want us to see him? And I kind of think about, I kind of almost feel like we have to at some point see Peter Shimfumbe, in at least learn more about him, or maybe he is partially part of Nemesis. Maybe that's kind of where it started. So I'm really interested to see where that goes.
Yeah, that's kind of where I thought about it, as far as kind of my initial thought in a Nemesis, because Far Zenith changes so much from when Peter was alive to after he died. Like, Far Zenith was really, honestly, at least from what the lore tells us, very much in the spirit of the original Odyssey project, empowering humans. Peter seems, at least from what we know in the limited scope, that he's one of the good ones. And once he passes, then everything shifts to becoming this gold-plated escape pod for the rich that was the original fear for people when the Odyssey was first introduced. And then that actually ends up coming to fruition, which is pretty sad. So kind of seeing that legacy tarnished, and if his consciousness is still among those of Nemesis, he probably would hate it.
Absolutely.
And then I read something in the game guide for Forbidden West, just kind of going through the interviews, and I was reading the one with Ben McCaw, and there was some kind of reference in the sense of, like, why the Zeniths were handled the way they were, and the fact that it was a very brief section, but it was basically saying that, you know, this is like the embodiment of hubris and it needs to be punished. So almost reaffirming my notion in my head of, like, this almost seems like a reckoning of sense of sorts. Like, yeah, the Zeniths would absolutely fail that test 10 out of 10 times. But if Nemesis just arrives on Earth and just takes stock of humanity as a whole, what would it think? Because you have this really super focused group of perhaps some of the world's worst individuals with just a handful of good ones, opposed to, like, a world in general. What would it think of a larger population?
Yeah, it's almost like they totally tainted its view of humanity as a whole because of a few bad apples.
Yeah, it's just a whole bushel of bad apples living on one planet.
A big bushel of bad apples. I'm really excited to see what we learn more. I mean, what we learn more about Nemesis, because I think, of course, that's going to kind of expand what our theories could be. I hope we learn. I don't think we're going to learn more about Nemesis in the DLC. I think that it's going to focus away from that, because it would be kind of, I think it needs to not focus on Nemesis at all in the DLC. We know that it's coming, and I don't understand how we would learn more about him, given what we have. I feel like we already know all that we could know about Nemesis, unless Tilda was hiding something. But even then, I think they were able to access the databases from the Far Zenith ships. So I don't think anything could be hidden from us at this point. But I cannot wait to learn more about Nemesis. I do feel like there is some kind of involvement with Peter Shumbe in some regard. I don't know how, of course, but that's what I kind of like about this. Like we mentioned, like this, I don't know now, but I like to think about how it could work out. I like to speculate about what they can do moving forward. And the point that you made that like the Far Zenith were guilty of hubris and Nemesis is basically punishing them for it. It fits in perfectly because if you look at, I think it's Greek mythology. I think Nemesis is a Greek god of vengeance, and Nemesis struck down Narcissus. I kind of researched this when I did my Vassalor video. So Narcissus, of course, would be like Far Zenith in this case. So it definitely makes sense.
Yeah. So another question for you as well here, moving beyond the burning shores a little bit, seems like, well, obviously, you know, before this video will come out before Call of the Mountain. So interested to see kind of what revelations are revealed there. But also with this, essentially what it seems like we're getting this Horizon multiplayer game. What would you like to see explored in either of those that maybe you couldn't or wouldn't really be worth it within the storyline of Aloy and what she's dealing with?
Yeah. So I haven't I have to be honest, I haven't looked too much into the Call of the Mountain because I from the beginning, as soon as I found out it was gonna be for the PSVR 2, I have the PSVR 1,
Oh,
and I
gotcha.
think the only game I ever used it for was Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, which is an amazing experience in VR. But it was so much money, and when I heard that PSVR 2 was coming out, I was like, man, I don't know if I can spend that kind of money just for
No, I understand.
probably what will be only one game. So I haven't looked into it too much, but the what I have looked into about Call of the Mountain, of course, I think it's been confirmed that it's going to take place around the same timeline as Forbidden West. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I think it's one of those. I think it's going to be taking place. Maybe that's the thing, because all the imagery is Zero Dawn centric, right? Like Blaze is
Yeah,
still green. It's very much happening within the Carja plot line.
I didn't even notice that about the Blaze.
Right. So it's the things that you stare at the thing so much, like Blaze is a different color now. But the fact that it's also centering around a character who's very kind of integral to the liberation, in the sense that, and this was actually brought up to me when I literally made a whole analysis video on it, and then I took it down immediately because somebody said, did you not see this data point? And I was like, nope, I didn't. And then I looked back, I'm like, oh, it's right there. And it's all about Itamen's shadow, essentially laying out that this particular person, Rias, was directly responsible for smuggling Itamen out of Meridian and to Sunfall, and eventually serves time in Sunstone Rock Prison. Then Blameless Marad lets him out for this mission that we know very little about right now. So I'm wondering what kind of revelation within like what we might know from a Zero Dawn point of view could be impactful in general, because all we hear Marad saying is, you know, the machines are getting aggressive. Like, yeah, well, we know why the machines are getting aggressive. But to the tribal population, obviously, everybody's been reaching for straws and killing people and sacrifice if you're in the Sun Ring and things like that. So I think we see Aloy. I'm not sure if it takes place during the Forbidden West in general, but I definitely post Zero Dawn, I think, after the Battle of the Elite.
Yeah, so depending on when it takes place, the main thing I kind of thought of that kind of ties into the future of the Horizon series and potentially Burning Shores is if it does take place at the same time as Forbidden West, which is just what I'm going to assume as of right now until we learn more. And of course, I have an open mind, but if I stick with that theory that it takes place at the same time, I almost feel like why is Blameless Marad so concerned about the machines being like basically becoming more hostile, I guess, because you got to think the derangement's been happening for a long time. So what new is causing Blameless Marad to be kind of afraid, and why does he want to send someone to kind of investigate it? So in that sense, I almost feel like, and because this takes place in the Sundom, and I think we saw in some of the trailers clips, the very short clips, it almost looks like you're in the Embrace at some point too, like snow-covered mountains and like the kind of typical Nora encampment. But I almost feel like we might see, if again, this is just assuming that it's in the same time of Forbidden West, we might see Rias encounter, if there is a new tribe, we might see him encounter that tribe, because again, if that leak is correct, that tribe has basically has been able to subjugate machines. They are in control of their like machines in their area. Maybe they're the ones that are sending the machines out to kind of scout and attack in the Sundom and the Embrace. But of course, I feel like that's reaching too, because we know very little about when it's going to take place for sure. But when I do think that it takes place at the same time, I almost think that it's going to kind of be a segue between Forbidden West and the DLC in some way, especially given its release timing, being like 2 months before DLC releases, and the fact that we do see Aloy at some point. I almost feel like it may kind of lead into the DLC in some way. It might kind of show us. I do think that we're going to see at least one new machine. At
cool.
least I think they, not that they have to, but I think it would be a really cool surprise if in this VR game that is not connected to Aloy's main story herself, that we do see some kind of new machine, and then we get really hyped up for it, and then we are able to fight it in the DLC and see more of it. I think that'd be really cool. But of course, I'll have to watch your. I don't know if you're going to do like a playthrough of it, but I'll have to watch that if you do, or wait for your videos.
Yeah, I'll definitely be playing it. I'll definitely let you know what happens. That's for sure. Yeah, figuring out how game capture is going to work for VR is another thing that I'm going to have to kind of mull through and see how that goes. but I am excited at the prospect of just number one, experiencing a story beyond Aloy's. I think that's going to be really cool. I think and yeah, they've kind of done similar things like that before. Like the first time we ever saw a like a shell snapper in action was in one of the Horizon comics, and we kind of got a glimpse as to what it was capable of, because you saw it kind of rising out of the swamp in the trailer for Forbidden West, but kind of seeing what it's all about, that was, you're right, it totally did get me hyped up. I'm like, oh, I kind of know something about this, and it motivates you to read more comics or try more games out. And so I am very interested in that. And then as far as the multiplayer game is concerned, hopes, kind of fears, and things that you think that they should avoid and potentially really dive into that maybe the main story doesn't allow.
I before I start, I think is the multiplayer game being developed by another studio? I believe it is. Is that correct, or is it still being developed by Guerrilla?
I think it's in tandem with Guerrilla, I think.
Yeah. So there was a leak recently, and I'm not going to talk about
leak
it too
spoilers.
much, but yeah, exactly, leak spoilers. I won't talk about it too much, but from what I saw, it looks a lot different than the mainline games we're getting, which I don't have a problem with at all. I don't know what kind of story we'll get out of it, though. If it is kind of like a massively multiplayer online game or something, I'm interested to see. It almost kind of looks like something like, I think there's crafting from what the leak showed. It almost looks like something like Ark. I kind of draw those similarities between it, and the way Ark's story is laid out is interesting in its own right. So I think if I kind of picture them kind of going around on the same route of storytelling in that MMO, where they might have like a dungeon or something, and these different machines. But I don't know what they would show at the end of the dungeon. I don't know if it would be anything kind of crazy that would be a revelation that we would then take and go like, oh my God, like no wonder, like this is what is going to kind of be shown in the main game next. Because again, I don't know if we know when the MMO is even coming out, or when that multiplayer game is coming out. But I have my reservations. I'm 31 years old and I work a full-time job as of right now. So multiplayer games, I try to stay away from, because I used to be really good at them when I was in school and I had a lot of time for them. But nowadays, everyone's just so much better than I am when I jump on. So I have the reservations about that, because I don't know how much enjoyment I'll get out of it myself. Because I don't know how much time I'll have for it. But I am excited for it. I'm excited that they're doing something with the Horizon franchise in multiplayer fashion. I know a lot of people have been wanting some kind of co-op. I would love to see a Machine Strike mobile game. I don't know why they haven't done that yet. I think that's a big miss for them. I think they would do really well with the Machine Strike mobile game because even they would kind of appeal to people who don't even know about Horizon. Like I know my girlfriend would probably she plays Uno almost every day on her phone. I feel like it'd be something that she could get into.
Hey, you're talking to a
Um,
huge Gwent fan here, so
yeah,
I
yeah,
totally,
exactly.
yeah.
I'm surprised they haven't done that yet, but it would be cool if they kind of integrated stuff like that in an MMO as well. Machine Strike. I would love to see some kind of. Um, I'm trying to think of the name of the. I'm thinking of Firefight in Halo, but that kind of game mode where just waves and waves of enemies coming in. You have a squad of people that are fighting. I would love to see that in Horizon where you had. And I thought they should have done this in Forbidden West too. Um, the far Zenith, oh my gosh, I think they're not probes, but
The drones.
yeah, the machine like the that call the machines in basically it's like a bait
Oh
for
yeah,
them.
you get that in the Valley of the Fallen just a little
Yeah,
bit, kind of. Yeah.
I thought it would be such a good idea if they would have had that be like maybe after you finish the main game, you could have been able to go in there and activate it again and like started like some kind of firefight kind of mode almost where you just see how many machines you can fight off in a certain amount of time or something.
Yeah,
But
my main thing, and I've been like pounding my hand for this, or maybe only in my mind. It's hard to keep track of like what I've like set out. I'm a huge believer that Guerrilla should go back to their first person roots for a hot sec and make
mhm,
essentially a Nazi zombie slash horde mode for enduring victory.
that would be absolutely awesome. I would love
Right.
that.
Because I don't think like as a full game it would be satisfying because I think it would be wildly depressing
Yeah,
because
oh yeah,
you're not going to win, but that's kind of the thing with these wave things because that there is no winning. It's just as far as you can go, and I think that really not only aligns itself really well mechanically with what Gorilla is shown to be good at, but also thematically of maybe you put yourself in the shoes of the ninth MRB and you are at the Wichita Assailant and you're the last. Like that would be so awesome. And it's not like they don't know how to do first person shooters. So that's
exactly.
just my pitch.
Their game was a Halo killer at one point. But I'm glad you brought that up because I mean, even though the story would be depressing if they did that, one of my favorite games that I've ever played and one of my favorite stories that's ever been told in a video game was Halo Reach, which
Mm.
is the same kind of thing where you already know what's going to happen at the end. You already know that Reach is going to fall to the Covenant, but it's still really cool going through like being in one of their shoes as everything's playing out to get the little details about what happened leading up to it. I think that'd be great for Guerrilla to do with Enduring Victory. I think that'd be really cool, especially like you mentioned in first person because they can do it. I'm sure they could. I don't know if they'd be able to do it in that engine, but I'm assuming they would be able to. I don't know anything about video game development, but
Sure.
I think that'd be awesome. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, it's just like I just remember, and I talk about this all the time. I'm sure people want me to shut up about it, but I love Ghost of Tsushima, and I played so much Legends mode because it was so unexpected and it was just so fun. It knew exactly what it wanted to be. It wasn't trying to be. It had the kind of like a cool side thing where you're dealing with Onis and things, which was totally awesome. But and you can enjoy it completely independent of the main game, but to just have an experience that you could tap into like that where you can really feel what the Pharaoh plague was like would just give so much. Because yeah, you hear about them and you get these scattered kind of things and they're all horrifying, but to be able to put yourself on the front line or talk about that as a VR title would be insane to think about. So
Absolutely.
yeah, I feel like actually, do I want that?
I do. I'm all for it.
Yeah, but it's that's like my wish list thing for eventually. It seems like they're getting a little bit more um at least open to the idea of kind of expanding the universe in different ways. And I remember talking to Laz last time, essentially also taking the universe in new gameplay ways also is exciting. I hadn't even thought about that. So
Yeah. Yeah, I watched the video. I
um
know you're mentioning like kind of almost like a instead of open world, kind of having a very narrow, like driven, kind of like Ragnarok, I think you mentioned,
Mhm.
where you have little open world areas, but you're going down a certain path that's laid out for you. I think that'd be really cool for that franchise as well.
And as far as like the overarching thing for, and this is the one that I've been asking everybody about because Netflix, TV, Horizon, excited, nervous, Your thoughts?
Um, I don't know if you can see my tattoo, but I am a massive Halo fan. Um, and I have always wanted video game adaptations of like in TV shows or movies to do well.
Yeah, I
But
feel for you.
man, I have such a sour taste in my mouth right now from I didn't even watch it. I was one of those people that actually boycotted the Halo TV show. But it always makes me really sad because it feels like what I don't want to happen is what I'm worried about with Netflix. I wish that I think it does matter that it's on Netflix. I almost kind of wish that they went with HBO instead, like they're doing with The Last of Us,
Hmm.
because I feel like with what might happen, and my main fear with that TV show is that they'll end up doing something like what they did with The Witcher, where the writers kind of started on the right track by following the story of the game or the books,
Hmm.
and then they got a little like they got hubris. They're like, you know what? We can actually make this better if we do this instead. Forget what the main story says. So that's what I'm really worried about. I would love if it did well. I absolutely love it because I think it would open up the world for more people.
Sure.
Um, like same way that Cyberpunk Edgerunners did and Arcane did for League of Legends, or people who may not have played the game to begin with are now like, you know what, this is a really cool story. Let me go and play it. Because I feel, again, like you mentioned earlier, I feel like Horizon has just kind of been brushed under the rug a couple times,
Yeah.
which is a shame. I think the Horizon curse, we need to end the Horizon curse with the third game. Like, my goodness, what terrible release windows.
I know. It's like
Breath
you're
of the
just going
Wild
up
and then
against
Elden
these
Ring.
crazy earth-shattering
I
IPs. You're
know.
like, well, whenever Horizon 3 comes out, we can expect another tremendously great
Exactly.
game to come out that year.
The game of the year, whatever releases with it's going to be the game of the year that year.
Yep.
But yeah, for the TV show, regarding the TV show, I basically have reservations about it, but I
Yeah.
would love for it to do well. I'm gonna watch it unless the trailer shows something ridiculous like the Halo trailers did.
Yeah.
That, but I'm really hoping that it does well. Do we know when it's going to be released? Is there a release date window?
I think it's 2024, I think
Okay.
is what I had talked about. And for anybody know, I don't have any inside information about this stuff. The folks at Gorilla have always been really wonderful to me, but also they try to keep stuff under lock and key, which I appreciate. I totally appreciate. I really try not to ask those kind of questions either. I'm not a news channel, so I can kind of get away with not. But
Sorry to
oh
interrupt.
no, go
There is
ahead. Yeah.
one thing about the TV show that I forgot to mention. I think the writer for it does give me some hope because it's the writer, I think, for Umbrella Academy,
Hmm.
which I didn't finish watching the show, but I've heard wonderful things about. So that does give me a little bit of hope for it. So I hope that he does a good job with it. But I'm excited to see.
Yeah, and the more I think about it too, just I don't know, and I talked about this last time, and I hate to drum it up again, but I just feel like doing it in live action is going to be so ungodly expensive. And I look at something like I'm a big D&D person. I love Critical Role, so I really appreciate the adaptation that they've done animated series wise on Amazon Prime. And also, I love things like Avatar: The Last Airbender or Legend of Korra. It's like when it's done well, it can be done really, really,
Mm.
really well. And just so things can look consistent, so it doesn't, because, yeah, I think just from an aesthetic point of view from the Halo series, because I didn't end up watching it, but it seemed so clean. It seemed, it should
It
have been
wasn't
very much,
right.
yeah, it should have been like a Band of Brothers, like gritty style, just. And then, of course, just all the weird arbitrary changes that they made, which those are the things that I'm sure make you nervous, make me nervous. And you're like, that seems needless. It's like you
Yeah.
just changed it to change it.
Yeah.
Be subversive to be subversive. But yeah, as long as somebody within the IP is keeping track of everything, and it sounds like they're gonna find somebody to hopefully keep track of everything and make sure that continuity works well and everything like that. So, because as the franchise gets bigger, that's going to be harder.
I hope they do something along the lines of what Neil Druckmann, I might be pronouncing his name wrong, is doing with The Last of Us because it seems like he's very involved with it. I hope that they have someone that could be just as involved with the Horizon TV show as he is, because I feel like that makes a huge difference if the writer or at least someone in the IP, like you mentioned, is there to kind of help guide
Yeah.
the writers and actors on like how they would how they would envision it. I think that would help a lot.
Yeah, and I think, you know, from what I know, at least that does seem to be a priority for them. And you do need a dedicated person for that, because to ask somebody like Ben McCaw or Annie Katane to take off of their what already is an incredibly busy
Yeah.
slate, be like, no, 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 I need you to also get with all the Netflix people and tell them what to do, and that thing's stupid, and go back to
Pulled too
this
many
thing.
ways.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Speaking of big slate, what do you think? I would love to pick your brain about what you think about the Zero Dawn remaster, the leak of that potential Zero Dawn remaster.
Right. Selfishly, I think it would be cool, but also it didn't come out that long ago. And I played, so I was lucky enough to get my hands on a PS5 a while ago. So I have been able to do game capture and play a little bit of Zero Dawn on the PS5. And of course it's not Forbidden West, but it does look good and it
Yeah.
plays smooth. And I know there's some people who are like, if it's under a certain FPS, it's unplayable. I'm not one of those people. So I think as far as what we're getting right now, it's fine. Would I love to see the same caliber of mocap animation in Zero Dawn that we got in Forbidden West? Like, of course, I think that was probably the weakest point
I think
of
that would be
Zero
the biggest
Dawn.
difference. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, you know, and obviously, you know, the time that it came out and, you know, the restrictions and the capabilities that it had so many strong suits, but yeah, a lot of the character interaction, especially outside of cutscenes, was pretty wooden. I'll say that, you know, but if it would detract from a third game and future projects, excuse me, I think you should probably shelve it, because the one time they seemed to export and trust somebody with a something like that, the last time, and correct me if I'm wrong here, was with the PC port, because I
Hmm.
think originally Gorilla had very little to do with that.
Hmm.
And then it was such a disaster on launch that Gorilla's like, fine, I'll hold my beer. I'll do it myself. And then they fixed it.
You know, I actually didn't play it on launch, so I just found out that it had a rough launch recently because
Mm.
I just started playing it on PC for the first time because I finally have a PC that can run more than just like Minesweeper. but I'm on the same boat as you. I think Horizon Zero Dawn. So I'm still doing a live stream playthrough of Zero Dawn on PC, and there's a lot of times where I'm just looking at it and I'm like, this is beautiful. This is absolutely beautiful. I don't know how much how much more we could get from it at this point. Like, yeah, like again, the motion capture would be excellent to have the character models and motion capture like what we have in Forbidden West. But other than that, I also don't think it's, I know a lot of people are going to be mad about this, but I don't think it's necessary at all. I would, like you, I would much rather them spend the time and effort on future projects and expanding the world of Horizon rather than going back and remastering it right now. I think maybe 5, 10 years down the line, I think it might be something they could look back and to doing. But at this point, it was only 5 years ago, and it still looks great to me. I don't really think it's I don't think it's worth it. Um, I do think though that I almost have a feeling that they are part of the Zero Dawn remaster is recreating some of the assets like the Embrace or the Sundom in Forbidden West
Mm-hmm.
in that style, because of course we see the Sundom in the opening, basically the prologue for Forbidden West. So we know that they at least did something with the Sundom to kind of bring it up to the same standards as the rest of the game.
Right.
But this is going to go into my theory about the DLC. I think the DLC is going to be huge. I think
Mm.
it's going to encompass more than just the Burning Shore, like the south of the Forbidden West. We have that fort above Plainsong, that
Right.
mysterious fort that looks like a fort. And then they have that trail that kind of goes to nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's going to open at least a small area up there, and I also feel like if the leak about the Ashwa overtaking the Embrace and Aloy returning to the Embrace is true, I feel like it might even reopen that entire area. Maybe not the Sundom, but at least the Embrace in Forbidden
Mm.
West's engine. And I would love to see that. That's what I'm really hoping for. I know basically they're doing a remaster, but if they're doing a remaster, it'd be really nice if they put those assets in the DLC.
Yeah, it's because I'm all for, it's always nostalgic. I remember when um I played Red Dead Redemption 2 and they opened up the old map from RDR1, and I was really thrilled about it. It was really cool, but there wasn't a lot in
Yeah.
it. So as long as you populate it with interesting things to do, so that way, like for me, who loves Horizon and would love to just walk it and see what it looks like, um, even that has a novelty that can eventually wear itself down.
Absolutely.
So making sure that, yeah, there is a plot that goes through it to make sure that things are interesting as that happens. I think that's all really exciting. But you get a really cool opportunity to, I had this in Zero Dawn because I live in Colorado. So getting to see all of the places that you may, be interesting to you. And as far as like one landmark in LA outside of the ones that we've seen so far, you talked a little bit about your Elysium tie-in. Is there another kind of iconic LA landmark that you'd like to see in Forbidden West?
Oh man. I think it'd be really funny to have LAX. Not that I would like to see it, not that something be
You want to go to LAX in your free time?
Right. I would love to see what they would do with it, because I feel like they would do, I feel like seeing LAX in shambles. I feel like it'd be really funny too if they had just some terrible, awful, long side quest that you had to deal with in LAX for some reason. Maybe maybe it'll be the opposite though. Maybe Gildan will be delving into LAX or something. But I think it'd be cool to see LAX. And then even if we do go farther east into like desert area, like Joshua Tree, there are I would love to see some kind of desert oasis made out of these little casinos that they have out there, like Pachanga or Morongo or something. I think it'd be really funny to see. But there's not a terribly a lot of landmarks. I feel like what we saw in the trailer, we already kind of encompassed a lot of them, like the Santa Monica Pier. We have, of course, downtown Los Angeles with skyscrapers. And I think we also saw the Griffith Observatory and the Capitol Records building.
Yes.
So I feel like those are the most kind of iconic landmarks in that they could do in the LA area. And I live kind of in not East LA. When I say East LA, it always sounds funny, but for those like East LA County, there's not allowed out here. It is a huge county. There's not allowed out here. It's kind of, there's mountains and it's pretty, but there's no landmarks whatsoever. So I feel like they're already covering all of them with what they have so far, what we've seen so far in the DLC. Other than LAX, of course, I think that'd be the only thing, which I think would be really funny.
Yeah, it's luckily Horizon has done, and for if people have a problem with this, I don't understand it at all. Where they're like, well, yeah, like Red Rocks isn't across the street from Denver, but
yeah,
I don't want an accurate topographical representation of it and having to walk all that way. It's like,
you'd be walking all day,
yeah, give me the greatest hits, put them pretty close to each other, so that way things can be seen and you're exposed to them. And
this isn't Microsoft Flight Simulator. We don't
right.
need like an accurate representation.
Then for sure getting LAX. But so yeah, I'm like maybe like the Hollywood Bowl or something like that, or it's I was excited to see, and I still have plans to go out, and because I do a series where I'll go to the actual place, film it, and then kind of tie in real history and the lore of the game. And I was just so happy because on my wish list of like super high expectations for Forbidden West, it was always Las Vegas. That was my number. Every time somebody asked me, it was always Las Vegas, and we got it, and it was great. It was better than.
This is amazing.
Yeah, that's my favorite part of the game. Actually, I just remember playing that part and just smiling like an idiot the whole time. Just like, this is exactly what I wanted. So if some kind of LA landmark gets that kind of treatment, I think that'd be really, really cool. Because I think that's another one of those strengths that Horizon has that a lot of places don't, if or game franchises. You can't go into the world of Elden Ring, you can't go to Mars where like you could in Destiny or something like that. It's you can literally go to these places. Yeah, right. Elon's like, hold my beer, we're gonna get there. But yeah, that's I'm really excited, and gonna try to get those filmed and eventually make my way out to like the Isle of Spires and stuff. But I think you could be totally right. We got a ton of stuff about San Francisco in the trailer for Forbidden West, and we got so much more.
I want to ask you something, like, what if for the DLC, I want to pick your brain a little bit. What do you want to see most added to the DLC, whether it's gameplay wise, or mechanic wise or equipment wise, anything? What's on your like wish list, your top 5 things? Not, you don't have to do top 5, but that kind of list. What would you really want to see?
Yeah. I would say number one, story wise, I want more Quen. I get asked about the Quen a lot, and I wish I had more to tell people because we do have like a reasonable kind of overlying knowledge, but it's nowhere near as deep as I would like. So getting a chance to maybe see more about what the Quen are about would be great. Mechanically, selfishly, I'd love them to reintroduce the gold fast travel pack. It really
Oh
annoys
yeah.
me
Oh
that
my
I have
God.
to craft fast travel stuff all the time. It's like send me on a quest, let me grind for something once, and then I'll be fine.
I did all that
Um,
grinding in ultra hard, and it is not fun. It is not fun at all. So I'm totally with you on that.
yeah, it's so yeah, that was always my running inside joke because I remember uh in the lead up to Forbidden West in the trailer, it's like her and she goes over to this wounded fox and she's like, "Oh no, are you fine?" I'm like, you know how many foxes I've had to kill in Zero
I
Dawn
know, right?
to get this
Why is
right?
that fox so important?
I am the bane of your existence. There is less population in the world of foxes than there are now. So yeah, I'd love a golden fast travel pack. I'd love more about the Quen. Um, I'm very interested to see how they approach the boss fight with the Horus. Whether it's like God of War kind of style or Shadow of the Colossus, or maybe you're harnessing some weaponry from Enduring Victory. Maybe there's like some tanks that are still operational or something like that. But as far I was happy with a lot of the mechanics. I was very happy that they just kind of after a little bit gave you unlimited water breathing. As somebody who played Subnautica 1 and 2, that was like the thing that you're managing all the time. So just to be able to have that kind of ease of use, I would love some more underwater exploration. I think they did a really good job of it in Forbidden West, and I want them to just double down on that. So I'd say maybe top 3 Quen, fast travel, continuing their kind of strength to strength going into more underwater exploration because um, it was really great in Vegas, which I didn't expect obviously at all before just kind of understanding the story, but that was a really pleasant surprise. And yeah, just more in general because so much I'm interested to see how much of California coast is actually there still because so much of it was lost during the die off. So to see number one, what was lost, how much of it was actually reclaimed in the clawback, and how much is just lost to see. And also, I think the San Andreas fault probably has a lot to do with what's going on with the volcanoes and whatnot. And it seems like DLC, if you just to double down on your hope, it seems like Horizon DLCs love volcanoes. So you have a volcano
Right.
in the first one, having the second one.
I didn't
You
even
have
think about that. You're right.
you have an AI in that one, so you could get an AI in this one.
Yeah.
You could go 2 for 2.
That's like Mustafar all over again. No, I totally I really think it's kind of strange that they kind of I feel like they touted the underwater mechanics a lot leading up to Forbidden West release. So I was very surprised that it played such a minimal role. I mean, they do it a lot of like side quests where you have to go underwater and through these caverns and stuff. And of course, the whole entirety of Las Vegas, before you drain it, of course, is underwater. Which that revealed, by the way, like it was so cool. You come to Las Vegas, it all looks like it's a desert, which it is in real life, and then you don't know if there. It looks like you can see everything from the outside, and then all of a
Right.
sudden you go down, and the whole strip is underwater,
Yep.
which was amazing. But I do hope we get more underwater mechanics. But that being said, I think that if we did, they would have to kind of improve it in some way because while we while we are able to swim and dodge and use smoke bombs underwater, I always felt like it was frustrating that you couldn't attack underwater. I know it kind of adds to the suspense because you are running for your life when the Tide Ripper sees you, but at the same time, I feel like what I would like to see is more underwater sections in the Burning Shores, as well as if we get any new weapons, I would love to see some kind of like harpoon gun or something that they kind of mocked up or that Aloy might mock up that we can actually use to kind of defend ourselves. Um, and I would love to see, I know a lot of people are on the same boat because they always ask me about this, is a kind of underwater mount. I think that
Gotta
would be
say it.
awesome. Because if you are having more underwater sections, it's going to be really frustrating to have Aloy just swim the entire way.
Right.
As great as underwater mechanics are, it would be going from one end to the other in Las Vegas sometimes, playing through it multiple times is a little kind of frustrating because it's so
Sure.
slow.
Yeah.
So I think some kind of underwater mount would be really cool, whatever that may be. Um, so I think that'd be cool. Regarding the Quen, I would love to see more of the Quen, but I hope I don't I hope I don't upset you with my theory about it, and I could be wrong, of course, but I don't feel like we're going to see much of the Quen at all. I know a lot of people think that promotional art, the character in the promotional art is Quen, but this is a hill that I will die on.
Go
I
for it. I'm here for it. Yeah.
I am, and a lot of people think it's Talana. It's not. I'm sure it's not Talana.
I
I
don't
would
think
say
it's Talana.
99% is not Talana. I think the only reason people are thinking that's because of the ponytail. Um, which of course more than one girl can have a ponytail. But and the armor, it's a very kind of, we don't see, it's not super high resolution, and the color grading in the picture itself is kind of off. But I've kind of really looked into it. This is another rabbit hole that I went down. I actually went down in one of the streams recently with my viewers. Is if you look at them side by side with a number of the Quen's armor pieces and this character's armor piece, there are a lot of differences. Like this character's armor doesn't have any of those like vibrant, colorful tassels hanging off. It doesn't have a lot of the like metal plating. The shawl or whatever you would call it across the chest is different, and it almost seems, again, you can't really see because the color grading's off, but it almost seems like you can see a little midriff, which you don't see in any kind of Quen armor so far.
Mm.
Which is, I know, a really silly observation,
No,
but
no, it's all this stuff. I completely get it. You're
yeah,
you're in a safe space. You're okay.
I'm glad. And it looks like it has even some like gold trim, which I don't think we've seen outside of the Karja. I know for sure the Quen don't have any gold trim. So I'm really thinking that it's a member of a new tribe. And then another reason why I don't think we're going to see more of the Quen, which again, I could be totally wrong, but I feel like it's such a amazing accomplishment for the Quen to cross the Pacific Ocean to get to Legacy's Landfall in the first place. And it seems like they were able to, basically, the ships that did make it were all together. I don't think they mentioned anything about a ship getting lost down south or venturing elsewhere. And it seems to me like the Quen were very purposeful in their quest to Legacy's Landfall. They just wanted to go because they, of course, worshipped Ted Pharaoh. They wanted to find Thebes, and that seems like it was their main purpose of going there. I don't think they planned on kind of exploring out more, other than just kind of getting a feel for the local population when they kind of ventured out to the greenhouse.
Mhm.
But I feel like I don't see how they would. And when I try to think about it, I always try to put myself in other person's shoes. In this case, like the writers at Gorilla, I try to think about how they would write it to make sense for the Quen to be down in Los Angeles. And I can't myself, again, this might just be, I'm not thinking of something, but I can't see how they would write that into where they would have the Quen traveling south all of a sudden to Los Angeles, unless, of course, there was something Ted Pharaoh related there. Um, that's just me, though. I could be totally wrong. I hope we get more of the Quen. I would love to hear more about the Quen because they are a very interesting tribe. I would love to at least see what their homeland looks like. I know we probably never will actually go there, but I would love to see it. I would love to hear more about them and their history. And then I think the I think that, I don't know. I feel like, I think I'm trying to think about how I'm trying to say this. I like the mystery surrounding the Quen in a way. I
Sure.
think that if they did decide to leave it at that and we didn't learn more about them, I think it would add to their kind of um, why people are interested in them, because we don't know a lot about them. I feel like if we flesh them out too much, then it might take away some of that like mystery.
Yeah.
But again, we see Aloy wearing some Quen armor, which, I mean, it would make sense for them at least in that regard, if we just went based on that, for them to be in Los Angeles area, because how else would she get the Quen armor? But I guess we'll see in 2 months.
Right. That's the thing. You don't have to wait too long for it. And that's, yeah, you bring up reasonable points. And I think the thing that I don't like it when people don't speculate, but when they just point out holes in speculation, because like
Mhm.
that's the reason why it's speculation. You don't know
Yeah.
yet. And if it was airtight, then I would just tell you, right? Then it would just be
Yeah.
lore, and that's the way it would be. But that's part of the reason why, all this stuff is really fun, and maybe you find like a half of something, or you might have uncovered something on accident that you didn't think about. Yeah, selfishly, I would just kind of like want to have more answers for people concerning the Quen.
Mhm.
Maybe they've continued the ones that remained, or there was a one section of the flotilla that decided to explore down there, because I know along with going to Thebes, they were looking for answers when it comes to Leviathan, which is
Mhm.
the basically and there's so much speculation as far as like where they're from, right? And I would, if I were a betting person, I would say they probably originated from Eleuthia 1, which is in China,
Yeah.
I believe. And
Forget the name of the city, but yeah.
yeah, and even if I did, I probably couldn't pronounce that. I don't want to butcher it. I don't want to offend anybody.
Same here. Same here.
Yeah, for real. The fact that Gorilla is going to make me say Shimvumbe for the next like 5 years, I'm already frustrated about. But yeah, Pharaoh, easy, great. I got that one on lock. But potentially that. And as far as Ted Pharaoh stuff in LA, he did go to college at UCLA before
I
dropping
forgot
out.
about that. Yeah.
So I would love to see like some kind of college Ted story or something, just to get a little bit more about him. But yeah, I'm really excited for I gotta say, just Burning Shores. It's not the Burning Shores. It's not the Frozen Wilds. Yeah, I'm very excited for Burning Shores. But you said that you're either, you're about that 1 year mark for your creator journey. What are your kind of goals in the future, kind of moving forward, before we wrap this up?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I know, because I can talk about tinfoil stuff all the time. By the way, I have
Dude.
an open mind, so I didn't even think about the point about UCLA. So that's another thing. Like, ooh, you're right. So that if that gives me a reason to speculate that the Quen would go there. So thank you very much. Um, but moving forward in my journey, I'm still learning. I'm always the kind of person where I never think I know everything. I always see that there's room for improvement. I like making these kind of kind of minus kind of small improvements here and there. When I look back, like I mentioned in the beginning, when I look back at one of my first videos, I can definitely see that I have improved drastically from then. So I really just want to focus on improving my delivery more, my video editing more, and just regarding that. And I would love to, and I've always mentioned this since the beginning, I try to be as transparent as possible. But as much as I love Horizon, like I could talk about Horizon forever, and I absolutely love it. As much as I do, I've never wanted to create a channel directly specifically for one game, because I know myself and I want to make content that I'm passionate about first and foremost, because I feel like if you don't, if I, knowing myself, if I don't make content I'm passionate about, you're going to see it. It's not going to be as good as I could make it. Um, and I feel like, and I know myself as well, I have ADD, but if I did content for Horizon for the foreseeable future and only for Horizon, I would lose that passion for it. I would lose that spark. And that's the last thing I want to happen, because I want to go into the future franchise, or the future of this franchise, with as much of like a sparkle in my eye that I have now. So I don't know how I will do it. I've had little missteps here and there, but I would love to. I would say I haven't even found my niche yet. I
Yeah,
would
yeah.
love to do some kind of variety in some way, that is sustainable. But I know it's very hard on YouTube to do a variety, because it's very important to get into a niche and stick with it.
That's what
So
they
we'll see.
say.
Yeah, so we'll see. But that's where I want to continue to grow my community too, because I have an amazing community, that is absolutely wonderful. I would love to keep growing that community in the future, and basically hear more from them. I would love to get more suggestions from them, like what they would like to see me do, because of course they're the ones that matter. Like I'm making this content for somebody, and I would love to make it for them. So growing that community matters a lot to me. But yeah, that's my main goal going forward, is basically keep improving. Try to find my kind of flow going forward into this variety kind of channel that I want to create, while keeping my viewers interested and growing my community, of course.
No, that's well. Let's try to grow that community a little bit more.
Yeah.
Where can everybody find you?
So of course, my name is NoxiouSAsp. Thank you. You can call me Noxious for short. But I'm on youtube.com/NoxiouSasp. I do have a Discord server as well that I think is linked in my bio. I also have Discord. I'm really bad at keeping up with it, but the community there, we have a role playing thing that people set up for Horizon, a whole separate channel for role playing that is just, it is exploding. Like they're still going at it for like months and months. I love seeing that every time I log in. I love seeing that they're still involved. But you can follow me on Discord, and yeah, I would love to introduce you to my channel and basically get to know me more, and I would love to get to know you more. So please come and check it out.
Well, absolutely, man. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time and putting on the tinfoil hats with me. I know my wife gets sick of it. Like, I got this new theory. She's like, you always have this new theory.
My girlfriend's got really good at just, you can see when her eyes glaze over, like she'll look like she's listening, but I can tell.
No, and you know, in and of itself, a valuable skill.
Yeah, absolutely.
But once again, thanks so much there, Noxious, for coming on, and best of luck to you. We love in the content, whether it's Horizon or otherwise, and it's gonna be pretty cool to see Horizon step into your neck of the woods.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wanted to again thank you so much for having me on. Before I even started my YouTube channel, before I even really paid attention to who creators were, I was watching your videos without even realizing who you were, because as you can see, I love this kind of lore stuff. So when you first approached me in that live stream, which I do live stream every Saturday, when you approached me, I was like, I seriously had like, I was like, whoo. But yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. And you know, I'm really happy that people pointed out. I'm always in for, you know, when I see good content being made about the stuff I like, I want to shout it from the rooftop. So kudos to your community for getting the word out about you.
Yes. And thank you, Battler.
So want to keep at that. But yeah, you have a great rest of your weekend, and we'll talk soon.
All right, take care. Thank you so much.